Cool. So today we're going to talk about dark sky and bug ratings. Jake, what is a bug rating?
A bug rating is the letters stand for backlight, uplight, and glare. It's essentially a rating that tells you it's related to a fixture, a light fixture. It pulls data from the IES file. It tells you how much light is going backwards, which would be the B, up, which would be the U, and then G is separate from those two, and that's essentially the glare or the candela of that light.
Gotcha. And Trent, how do bug ratings and dark sky compliance relate to each other, and I guess how are they different?
Yeah, I guess the uplighting is probably one of the main concerns as far as having dark skies. You don't want to have the sky glow happening, so you usually need a recessed light that's pointed down to prevent any light from going up. You also want to consider light trespass, so that's where backlight comes in. You don't want light going on other people's properties, and you just want to make sure that light is where it's intended to be.
Cool. So bug ratings have nothing to do with bugs.
They do not.
Not today.
Gotcha. Cool.
Yeah.
So when people talk about dark sky, I would say that's often a misunderstood term. There is an official dark sky rating. I believe it's IDA dark sky, and then local cities, local areas have taken that and created their own version of dark sky. I know it can mean everything from a 3,000 Kelvin color temperature fixture or warmer with all the necessary accessories and recessed light engines to create limited uplighting. It can also just mean a fixture at 0 degrees, any fixture at 0 degrees. So Jake, so you run our applications team, so you guys see a variety of dark sky requests. How would you categorize the different types of requests? I know there's probably infinite variations, but if you had to kind of chunk them together in a few different buckets, how would you categorize dark sky requests?
Yeah, it kind of goes by application. That's probably the easiest bucket to put things into. So you have sports lighting, which is a world entirely on its own when it comes to dark sky stuff. Then you have general parking lot facility type lighting. Parking lot lighting is by far the most common. Roadway is also relatively common, but we don't do a lot of DOT type of roadway work, so it doesn't come up as much for us. So specifically parking lot lighting, and then the next level of that is going to be just diving into exactly what was requested on the front end from our sales team, from the end user, whoever we're working with, whoever the salesperson is working with, and just kind of trying to dig through exactly what they need. It's a little bit easier because we can take it a step further, and we can figure out exactly where the job site's located, and certain areas around the country have much stricter requirements for dark sky. So when someone says, I need a dark sky fixture in California, for example, that means something entirely different than dark sky in Wisconsin.
That's a great point.
So that's
same term, way different requirements.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Yeah. So those are like the general places that we would start with a design. From there, we just go through different fixture options. Obviously, if it needs to be dark sky, we're always talking about something 0 degree mounted, so side mounted, all the lights going straight down. But in a place like California, you might have a hard requirement for recessed for 3,000 K, whereas like here in Wisconsin, they might not necessarily care about the color temperature as long as it's 0 degree mounted, like we kind of just discussed.
So it's similar to the Florida Wildlife Commission for amber and turtle friendly, where in some ordinances, some codes, as long as you have the right amber LED chip with the right wavelength and maybe a glare shield, that's good enough to comply with their standards. In other areas, you need official FWC compliance, but all requests come in as turtle friendly. Mm-hmm. And like you said, part of our applications process is to identify, how strict is the requirement, and a lot of that is based on geo. I think I've also seen factories that will make up their own certification. So, and there's nothing wrong with doing that, but it can, maybe create some confusion. So would you say the 4 categories are official IDA, and then you have local city codes, and then there are third-party compliance now other than IDA, like ETL has a certification, and then the last would be factory certifications. Yeah. Are those kind of the 4 categories?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Trent, as far as the official certs, I guess IDA versus ETL or UL, how do those differ, and what are they trying to accomplish?
Yeah, I guess the certs would be IDA and DLC, and DLC just put out technical requirements at the end of 2021 for what would meet their standards, and they created this along with IDA. It's just something to give customers a point of reference and maybe a single source for dark sky compliance type of stuff, and it just is, I think, similar to like a manufacturer creating their own cert, but it's more standardized, and it's going to also have to do with the quality of the light fixture and how reliable it is, lumen maintenance and things like that.
So it kind of goes beyond IDA in some.
Yeah, it kind of
respect.
Mixes just DLC and IDA in some regards, but it's just another thing for people to use.
Okay. So Trent, you spend the majority of your time on product engineering and running that team at Wisconsin Lighting Lab. What are some of the challenges from a factory or a product engineering standpoint? What are some of the challenges that these requirements create? Let's pick bollards for one example. Bollards, we do a lot of bollard work. We also do a lot of high output products. I guess what are challenges in each categories when it comes to dark sky compliance?
Yeah, I guess by nature, the design of the bollard, there's a light source above, and the bollard tube is below it, and there's going to be a certain amount of light that hits internal parts of the bollard tube, and they're going to get reflected back up into the sky. So immediately you're going to start seeing the bug rating, the U value go to 1, no matter what you do. Then you have to kind of side mount a fixture to a bollard tube in order to get to a U0 standpoint.
Which from a customer's perspective is a bit of a compromise, because you don't want people walking by and like catching their leg on the bollard.
Aesthetically it's not as nice to look at either. So there's just give and take with bollards for sure. Yep. And then as far as like high output stuff goes, they just put out so much light that any light going in the up direction is going to increase your U value, even though it's like a 1% maybe of the total light output. It's still going to be up to like 1,000 lumens of uplight. Yeah, and you have 100,000 lumen fixture, so you can certainly have challenges with getting dark sky compliance out of a very high output product.
And Jake, that's one thing you've mentioned in the past, is the bug rating and the requirements do not scale along with the fixture itself. So if you have a 1,000 lumen fixture and the bug rating calls for 1,000 lumens or less of uplighting, I'm not sure if that's exactly what it is, but then you have a 100,000 lumen fixture and it still calls for that. Yeah. You're kind of handcuffing some of the higher output products.
Yeah, obviously the bug rating is, and this is where we run into issues, because the markets that we're primarily dealing with are going to be the high output markets. The bollard one is a little bit of a weird one too, because there's a lot of times when they have hard requirements for a zero uplight in that area, and there has to be some type of light somewhere. And bollards are usually the kind of like the go-to to fill in the blank of not having poles in an area. So the bollard, just to wrap up that, is like having an uplight of 1 on a bollard. You're talking 10 lumens, and so something like that, that's not necessarily going to create issues with the sky. You're talking when you have uplights of like a rating of 5, like on a really crazy bright floodlight, like in the markets that we deal with, that's where you're getting a majority of your sky glow from. So it's like that market, the high output market, is really where the bug rating really is coming into play the most. And again, like you mentioned, it doesn't scale at all. So basically, It's 0 to 10 is your bug rating of 1, 0 being a 0 for the U rating. And then anything beyond that, it's just like, I think it's 10 to 100, then 100 to 1,000, up to B4. B5, I believe, is up to 10,000. I could be wrong on that. It might be 5,000. But either way, it doesn't scale linearly with the output of the fixture. So that puts us in kind of a tough place when we're talking about high mass type applications, because there's just so much light coming out of those fixtures. You can't control everything.
Yeah.
So that, yeah, like you said, it's difficult to control 100%.
Yeah, I would think for a high mass fixture too, if you have a 120-foot lighting assembly, the downlight is creating as much sky glow as the uplight as well, because the downlight in that case is way brighter than an uplight for a 20-foot lighting assembly.
Yeah, that's why, like, when you think of the bug rating stuff, especially the up, it's like it's all fixture specific. It's not application specific.
Yep.
And they do that obviously because you can't control every application. You can only control what you can control, and the easiest point to control is the fixture. But I guess like that's like one of the biggest takeaways is with this with the bug rating stuff, the uplighting, there probably needs to be a little bit, in some areas they're very strict, and there probably needs to be a little bit more variation. And people need to realize that just because we're supplying a fixture that has an uplight of 2 doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to be better than an uplight of 1 or 0.
Yep.
If you have a bunch of fixtures, like you have 12 fixtures with a uplight of 0, opposed to like 2 fixtures with an uplight of 1, yeah, the application itself is going to create less like sky glow, just based on the reflections of the ground. Maybe there's less overall lumens. So that's something to keep in mind for people, is you got to think about the entire application, not just dial down to the exact fixture specs.
Yeah, and I think maybe a good thing to close on too is our application engineering, product engineering teams get pretty involved on pretty much any high output job. We do a lot of our own lighting designs. We can work through the technical details on a project to project basis, help educate our customers, our sales partners, their engineers. So it's, rather than simply just publishing, here's the data, here's the requirements, we're here to help get through those nuances, because there are nuances on every single application. Mounting height affects it, the location of the job affects it. There are just certain things you can't work around. So, we can help identify some of those, but yeah, we're certainly here to help, not just publish information, but on a job-to-job basis, help work through some of these things. So, I guess, do you guys have anything else you want to make note of on the topic?
I think just one thing too, just for people to keep in mind, especially in areas like California, I mentioned this already, where they're relatively strict with the uplighting and kind of just the bug rating overall. Depending on the actual location and kind of just like what's all going on in the environment, California and other states like Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico, these states generally have they have specified lighting zones, and those lighting zones are basically what you need to follow if you're trying to follow a specific bug rating. So knowing those lighting zones, we can help determine what those lighting zones are. It's all found on like the government websites. But just knowing those lighting zones helps us when we're selecting products and creating the lighting designs. So just something additional to keep in mind. That's like another layer into just the bug rating.
Okay. Well, that's great to know.
Yeah.
Anything else? Sounds good.
I think I'm good.
Well, thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.